Andrew Yang has had plenty of memorable moments during his campaign for presidency, but today we're going to look at what we think have been some of his best so far in 2020. With that being said, let's get right into the video. During the New Hampshire debate, Yang was a bit more aggressive when it came to addressing some of the other candidates' points. So when Pete Buttigieg tried to point fingers at Donald Trump as the one to blame for our country's shortcomings, Yang is quick to correct him.
Pete, fundamentally you are missing the lesson of Donald Trump's victory. Donald Trump is not the cause of all of our problems, and we're making a mistake when we act like he is.
That's right.
He is a symptom of a disease that has been building up in our communities for years and decades. And it is our job to get to the harder work of actually curing the disease. Most Americans feel like the political parties have been playing you lose, I lose, you lose, I lose for years. And you know who's been losing this entire time? We have. Our communities have. Our community's way of life is disintegrating beneath our feet. That's why Iowa, a traditional swing state, went to Trump by almost 10 points. That's why Ohio, a traditional swing state, is now so red that I'm told we're not even going to campaign there. So these communities are seeing their way of life get blasted into smithereens. We've automated away 4 million manufacturing jobs and counting. We're closing 30% of New Hampshire stores and malls, and Amazon, the force behind that, is literally paying zero in taxes. These are the changes that Americans are seeing and feeling around us every day. And if we get to the hard work of curing those problems, we will not just defeat Donald Trump in the fall, but we'll actually be able to move our communities forward.
I know we're going to hear a lot more on this. We're going to move on.
During the CNN town hall in New Hampshire, Yang got asked about mental health and suicide by one of the audience members, and Yang's answer is heartfelt, and you can tell that Yang wants to get to the root of bad mental health and suicide rates within the country. He comes off as a citizen and not some politician speaking empty words.
My question is, teen suicide is on the rise in the United States. What would you do to make sure that teens and young adults get the mental health care that they need to prevent these tragedies?
Thank you for this question. I am so passionate about addressing the mental health crisis in our country. My brother's a clinical psychology professor, so I know that we can do much, much more for people who are struggling. We need to invest in counseling and therapists at the high school level at a minimum, make it so that if you do have struggles, you have a resource you can go to. I'm going to tie back in technology to this phenomenon because the mental health crisis we're seeing among young people right now, anxiety, depression, antisocial impulses, spiked when we got smartphones and social media apps into teenagers' hands. And I was a very awkward, introverted 12-year-old kid, not that you can tell now, I don't know. But when I was 12 years old, if I went home and closed the door, I felt like I was alone. Today, if you're 12, you close the door, you feel like your classmates are still in the room with you because you can take out your phone and see what they're talking about and saying at every moment. You know who doesn't let their kids use these social media apps and smartphones? The folks in Silicon Valley who made millions of dollars off of them. If you ever want to go to a screen-free environment, go to Silicon Valley. You will find there are no screens in sight for kids below a certain age. So if we want to address the mental health crisis in our young people, we need to get therapists in place and counselors. We need to destigmatize these struggles at the highest level. I would have a psychologist in the White House. I thought that was a good idea even before the current administration. But it just sends a very clear message that we all struggle and that it'll encourage people to step forward. We also do need to get into the guts of these social media apps and let these companies know that the mental health of our kids are more important than their profits.
Yeah. Listen,
During a conference for all the top presidential candidates with more than 7,000 attendees, Yang gave an extremely powerful speech that got the crowd finishing his sentences and a huge applause from the audience.
This is what we must solve for in New Hampshire. We have record high corporate profits in this country right now. What else are at record highs? Suicides, drug overdose, substance abuse, stress, financial insecurity, student loan debt, medical bankruptcy, mental illness, depression. What are at record lows in the United States of America right now? Getting married, having a child, starting a business for a young person. We are following GDP and corporate profits off a cliff, New Hampshire. They're leading us the wrong direction. I know how off base our economic measurements are because of my own family. My wife is at home every day with our 2 boys, one of whom is autistic. How much is her work valued at in our market economy? Evelyn gets a 0, as does every other stay-at-home parent in our country. How about caregivers taking care of ailing loved ones? Also 0. How about volunteers and activists trying to make things better in our communities? How about coaches and mentors investing in our kids? How about most artists? And increasingly in New Hampshire, this is a problem you should care deeply about. How about local journalists? It is very, very hard to have a democracy function when people don't actually know what's going on in their community. These are the things we claim to value most in our lives: our children, our families, our community, our democracy, and they're getting zeroed out one by one by one. That is what we must reverse on Tuesday. We have to let our fellow Americans know that economic value and human value are not the same things, and that we each have intrinsic value as Americans, as people, and as owners and shareholders of the richest country in the history of the world.
It should be no surprise another clip from the New Hampshire debate would make it on this list, as Yang didn't hold back when it came to correcting the other candidates. So when Elizabeth Warren explains her plan to add housing in minority communities, it was no surprise Yang would use this opportunity to show the vagueness of that solution.
But we cannot just say that criminal justice is the only time we want to talk about race specifically. We need to start having race-conscious laws. Housing, for example. I have a great housing plan to build more housing in America, but understand, it was the policy of the United States of America to discriminate against African Americans and people, any other people of color, for buying homes until 1965. You can't just repeal that and say, okay, now everything is even. It's not. We need race-conscious laws in education, in employment, in entrepreneurship, to make this country a country of opportunity for everyone, no matter the color of their skin.
Elizabeth, with respect, with respect, you can't regulate away racism with a whole patchwork of laws that are race-specific. What we have to do is heed the writings of Martin Luther King, whose birthday we just celebrated. He said that capitalism forgets that life is social, and what he was championing was a guaranteed minimum income for all Americans of $1,000 a month or more that would end up reshaping our economy in communities of color, make it so that black net worth is not 10% of white net worth in this country, which is the most important number of them all. We can't regulate that away through any other means except by putting money directly into the hands of African Americans and Latinos and people of color to allow businesses to actually flourish and grow in those communities. The only way that will happen is if black and Latino consumers have buying power, and that is where we have to move as a country.
Senator Sanders, then Mr. Steyer.
Well, in Iowa, Andrew Yang held a conference before the Iowa caucus and got emotional while thinking back on the last few years of hard work that he and his team have done there, and made sure to thank the crowd and all those that have helped him.
Beautiful to me and my family. My kids love it here. They came in the summer. They've been here this past week. One, they love Daddy's bus because Daddy's now got a huge bus. I don't know if you saw it. My boys don't really understand what I'm doing. I just told them Daddy has a really big deadline on Monday. But I have to say, I love Iowa. Campaigning here the last 2 years has been the journey of my life. I'm really glad that you all are going to determine the future of our country. I know you know just what to do.
Donald Trump's our president today because he had a very, very simple message for the American people. It was very powerful. He said he wanted to make America great again. What did Hillary Clinton say in response? America's already great. You all remember that? It's been a long 3 years, I know, Dubuque, but it's now coming to an end. That response did not work for many Americans because the problems in our communities are real. We have to acknowledge their reality and depth and severity, but then we need real solutions that will move our country forward. What were Donald Trump's solutions? Build a wall, turn the clock back, bring the old jobs back. Dubuque, we have to do the opposite of these things. We have to turn the clock forward. We have to accelerate our economy and society to rise to the real challenges of this time, like climate change. We have to evolve in the way we see ourselves and our work and our value. I am the ideal candidate for this job because the opposite of Donald Trump is an Asian man who likes math. Thank you all very much.
That's it for the video. Is there anything we missed? If so, let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. But with that being said, thanks for watching and have a nice day, folks.